Hello there, this is Agri Talk right here on KTN Farmers TV, and today we'll be talking about investing in youth-led enterprises. And to discuss this is Esta Kamau, who is the country director, Heifer Kenya, and we'll be discussing more about this and what Heifer is doing in order to support the smallholder farmers and also you as a youth in this agriculture space. Innovations, what is it you need to do in order for you to thrive in this? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get right into the conversation and even start with Heifer. First of all, what if someone hears about Heifer, what does Heifer do?
Thank you, Kevin. So Heifer International is an organization that is involved in fighting hunger and poverty while caring for the earth. And we've been doing this for now 79 years.
Wow.
We will actually be celebrating our 80th anniversary next year. And we've been doing this globally. The organization was founded about 80 years ago in the United States, but currently we are in operation across the different continents, Africa, Asia, Latin America, as well as in America. And for us, we are a trusted partner to the farmer. And how do we do this? When we think about our founder, his name was Dan West. He saw an opportunity immediately after the World War where there were many people who had been displaced, and he was able to provide milk to them. And every day the crowd kept growing outside his house. And he reached out to his church members and asked them to be able to contribute, to be able to support these displaced people. And that started a movement that then led to the Heifer that we know today. Because what they started to do as a community, as a church, and even as an area where they were staying, they contributed to buy animals, and in this case they were cows, to be able to give the farmers, because as a productive asset. So not just giving them the milk, but if you give them the cow, they could then be able to get the milk, they could be able to use it to till the land and to do many other things. And that has been the principle of Heifer to date in the way we've operated. It's really about being able to give people the opportunity of that productive asset that then can be able to help them, and especially in the farming communities where we work. In Kenya, we've been here since 1981. Started in Western Kenya, working with a rural community of women farmers. Again, was brought over by the church. So I want to emphasize the importance here of community, and I'll keep talking about the way we work. It's critical. We don't just work with individuals, but we work to empower communities, farming communities, because we believe that they are the bread basket of our economy. And when we started by working on a project that was doing what we call animal placement. We were able to give them the cattle. We were able to teach them how they can be able to have different activities with the cattle. But the critical thing was something that was known as passing on the gift. And what we would do, we would give them a heifer, what we call ndama, that was actually pregnant. And for them, what they needed to do is when that ndama got the calf, they needed to identify somebody else in the community to be able to gift. And that really has been our principle and is the principle we follow to date. We have stopped, or actually evolved the model from just being an animal placement organization to what we are now calling cows to capital. Right? Yeah.
So even as we speak about the way you've explained very well about the history and how it started in Kenya, let us look at how you work with smallholder farmers and what is the motivation behind working with smallholder farmers. Explain to us about this a little bit.
So for us, we believe that the future is farmers. When we think about the world that we live in today, we need to eat. We need nutrition to be able to thrive, to be able to be a productive economy. And as such, by working with the farmers, we're able to build their capacity, not only to produce products or crops that are healthy and that are using the correct methodology, but importantly, also to be able to get an income that is able to sustain them. So for us, working with small scaleholder farmers is so critical because we feel it's solving several problems. One, we are being able to help the farmers to understand and have the right technology, the right access to the right seeds, the right varieties, the right breeds, but importantly, to also be able to look at the activity of farming as a business. Because for many years, when you think about farming, many times people think farming is for those people, you know, who don't want to make money. But you have to ask ourselves, if we did not have those farmers, we would not actually be having the mbogas that we eat. We would not be having the mama mboga. So when you think about the farmers, they are actually a big driver to the economy. When you think about agriculture, is one of our biggest economic drivers in Kenya. So working with farmers for us opens multiple opportunities for us to be able to thrive, not just as a country, but also as individuals within the country.
Right. As you work with farmers, I believe there are some challenges that usually you encounter, and especially because there's a way in which someone has been used to doing their farming, but now you're coming in. So what are some of the gaps when you're working with farmers, and how have you been able to seal the gaps?
So one of the things that I think, you know, that I can say that's very important is that indeed we've come across different ways of doing things or different opportunities where we can be able to support the farmers to become more productive. But I also want to emphasize that the farmers know best. Because I think sometimes we tend to go and think we have the solution. And it's very important to actually understand the opportunity from the person themselves who is actually involved in the activity. So the voice for us of the farmer is very important in understanding the challenge. And so there are multiple. There are issues, of course, when we work with farmers is, you know, access to information, ready information to be able to help them to make the right choices. Ready information, even to be able to know where are those markets, right? Because that's the next thing that the farmers talk about. They can produce, you can give them the right seeds, you can talk about production, but where is the market? How do you connect them to that market? But also critically, access to finance. For you to be able to do anything, you need to be able to have injections of capital that then help you to make that enterprise viable. So access to finance. And I want to say it's about creative mechanisms of financing. It's not that there is no financing. There's a lot of capital actually when you look at it. But how is it structured? Is it structured in a way that it is attractive to the farmers? But also the other challenge that we are finding that actually is something that we need to address urgently is when you look at the average age of a farmer. The average age of a farmer, not just in Kenya but in Africa. In Kenya, ideally, the average age will most probably be around 55 to 60. So what does that mean when you look at the next 10 or 20 years? If that is our average age of a farmer. And then I want to introduce another perspective. When you look at our population in Kenya and our population by large in Africa, it's a very young population.
Yes.
We have a lot of youth, a lot of you know, good productive energy. However, they are not involved in the agricultural value chain. Yet we have said it's such an important value chain. We have actually said the average age of the people who are involved in agriculture are quite old. So in itself, there is a challenge there because we need to be thinking then, what does then this agriculture that's very important to us then look like in another 10 or 20 years? If we do not address the challenge of involving younger people into agriculture, then even if we talk about access to finance, access to markets, access to information, we are not solving a critical problem that is going to be a big challenge in the future.
All right. Now, you've brought in the aspect of the younger generation. And now let's focus on the younger generation because many of the people, many of us, when you are brought up, agriculture and farming was not really something that was put on the forefront. It was something that was just, okay, this is something that you do on the side, but education is the most important. Now, when you now tell a youth that this is the way to go, and we need to build this idea of farming among the young people. How do you approach such a situation?
Yeah. I think first it begins with how we define the opportunity. And I think that is in itself how we are able to then unearth the opportunity that exists in the challenge. So when we talk about agriculture, Kevin, you're very right that indeed agriculture has been seen to be that thing that was done by certain people. When you look at, I will use my own example, you know, my farmers, my parents, even if they had other activities, they really also were farmers. At the end of the day, growing up, you know, every single holiday and every single opportunity over the weekend we spent on the farm. Mm-hmm. And I hated it. Because when I looked at the toil, when I looked at the opportunity, it was not appealing to me. It looked like it was a lot of hard work. But then I wasn't seeing wealth in that opportunity. However, I acknowledge that if they were not involved in agriculture, I would not be who I am today.
Yes.
Because it is the money that came from that agriculture that was able to substitute on some of their other activities that they were doing to be able to educate me. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it is the how we define agriculture. When we look at the youth, we've done studies as Heifer across Africa to really listen to the youth. Because for us, as we work with the communities, it is about being led by the community. For mm-hmm. us, it's very important. The voice of the community is critical. So we undertook a study in 2021 across Africa, just really listening to the youth and really understanding what are the actual challenges that they perceive or they see in terms of the opportunities in agriculture. And one of the things that the youth said loud and clear is that when you hear agriculture, you only think of farming, but you don't actually look at the value chain and the different nodes and the different opportunities that those nodes present within agriculture. Because when you think about the production at the farm, once that product is produced, it needs to be transported. It needs to be packaged. So what are the opportunities maybe in transport? What are the opportunities in packaging? What are the opportunities in value addition? And this is where the young people come in. When we speak about agriculture, we are not telling them to all become farmers, because we know there are also other innate challenges. They are not landowners. Also, the opportunity to be able to own land is also a big challenge for them. But then we are saying, what is it that you already have as a youth? One, you already have the energy, you already have the creativity, that productive energy. How do we then churn that productive energy and use it in the agriculture sector? And so for us, is to look at the different nodes and how youth then can become viable, can offer solutions that then enhance the productivity of some of the challenges we've seen at the farmer level, and be able to then open up those opportunities at scale. Bring solutions, because the youth have solutions. So what we did, and what was very monumental about that study, is that the youth told us, we want to be involved in agriculture. It's not that we don't want, but we have a way in which we look at agriculture. We have a way in which we have solutions to some of the problems in agriculture, that then you need to be looking at us in that way. And so for us as Heifer, we took that as a challenge, and we listened, and then we were able to then start thinking about solutions that then can be able to bring more youth into the agriculture space, but at the same time solving some of the challenges we are seeing at the farmers, because for us, we know the business of farming.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Still on this matter, let us look at the importance of investing in the youth-led enterprises that deal in the agriculture space, and also the innovations that usually come in, because you had talked about technology as one of the ways that is really driving agriculture. So what is the importance when it comes to investing in the youth, in a youth who owns an enterprise and also who has innovated something in the agriculture space?
Okay, very good question. I think the world has evolved in everything, not just agriculture. And technology has become a very integral piece of how we do everything. If you look at the education sector, Kevin, when you went to school, it was most probably abnormal. We were writing all the time. If you walk into school these days, the things we used to call blackboards don't exist anymore. Now you have, different kinds of even whiteboards. Sometimes you even have other technologies. So even the way when we want to do a research, the way we are getting information, when you talk to the young people today, everybody, whether rural or urban, they know technology. They will say Google something. So when we use that and we look at what technology is doing in terms of the way it's changing, even in agriculture is no different. So taking advantage of technological innovations that exist to be able to solve some of the challenges that we see in agriculture is very important. But to be able also to enhance those innovations, we actually need financing. And not just financing, we need innovative financing, because there are several challenges. There's the financing, there's the market, and there's the access to information.
Yes.
So a lot of these young people have ideas. But one of the things that they don't have, even if they are creating amazing, innovative ideas that are capitalizing on technology, they do not have social capital. Because when I talk about capital and when I talk about financing, it's not just about money. They do not have the networks.
Yes.
They do not have the way to access the markets. They do not have the credibility yet, right? And so how do we work with the youth to be able to help them tap into some of those challenges that they are having? How do we help them to be able to get credibility? How do we help them to be able to get financing that is suited for them, that is not going to drown them, that is going to be able to de-risk some of the ideas that they have? Because remember, some of those innovative ideas, why they are not seeing the light of day is because sometimes they are a bit risky. So who is this who is going to believe and be able to invest in that idea, so that then they're able to test it to be able to then become a fully based solution that can solve a problem in the market? And that is where I think for us as HEFA, we come in, because we do need to be able to look for innovative ways to be able to invest in solutions, in those technical solutions, in the youth, to be able to bring those ideas to see the light of day, to actually go to scale. And that is where I think we've been doing a lot of good work, and that is where we've actually been taking our learnings from knowing the problems with the farmers, but also listening to what the youth told us, and then trying to work with the communities to see how do we support them to be able to bring these ideas of theirs, this creativity, to light.
Okay. Right. Even as you are talking about the approach and how you've tried to come in, I believe I can mention about the Ayute challenge, because I remember I had come across it. We had also talked about it last year. And what did you find, and what was the experience like? Just give us a little bit about it, so that at least someone who's watching can learn a little bit about what it was all about. And are we expecting something like that in the coming months? And also, what is it about? Okay.
That's a very good question. So again, based on our listening to the youth and also based on our experience, we needed to come up with a solution to that problem, and it needed to be a different solution. And so Heifer International came up with what we call Ayute. And Ayute is really about identifying creative, innovative ideas in the agriculture space that are there to solve some of the problems that farmers, small scaleholder farmers, are doing. And this can be in production, it can be in marketing, it can be in whatever. And that was the birth of Ayute. So Ayute was actually kicked off as a continent-wide activity. Started at the regional level in Africa, but then we then started country-specific chapters where Heifer International is operating. And this is, we have Ayute in 9 countries at the moment. And so I'll speak specifically to Ayute in Kenya. We had our first Ayute, which is an innovative way of identifying the youth through a call to action, where we give the youth an opportunity to come and share their innovations and why they think their innovations actually provide a unique opportunity for the farmers. And we are able to work with them to build their capacity, to help to mentor them, to link them to markets, provide some grants, to be able then to move that from ideation to actual implementation. So Ayute Kenya, we had our first edition of Ayute in 2022, very successful, and we had just recently, about a month ago, we had our second edition of Ayute in Kenya, and we are just about to launch our third edition of Ayute in Kenya. And I'll speak to the impact that it has had just in 2 years. One, we've actually been able to receive more than 400 applications from across the country of youth, not just early stage or startups, but also people who have started, they're at ideation stage, right? Secondly, we've actually been then able to move a lot of those youth from just the ideation stage by training about 240 of those youth through a mentorship program that typically will take about 6 months, where using that program, they're able to hone their skills of presenting their ideas, hone their skills of being able to raise capital for their ideas, hone their skills in terms of how do you create the connection with markets, but also by exposing them to different opportunities, financiers, exposing them to different mentors who either understand that sector very well and can provide that hand-holding for them, but also importantly, providing them with the all-important grants. So we've been able so far in the last 2 years to give cash grants of 40,000 US dollars. I don't know, 40,000 US dollars, if you do the math, currently I think the dollar is at about 145 to the dollar.
Yes.
It's quite a bit of money, but investing into youth. And that is just a small, I think, pin in the ocean, because Ayute is just one example of initiatives like Ayute that are happening across the country. We have quite a number of them. But what I'm saying is I'm using it as an example to show the impact it has had working with those youth.
All right. Even as we go for break, now, when you come back, I think we'll speak about some of the challenges the youth are going through and what you've been able to encounter, and how going into this, when you decide to come up with an enterprise, and also as a youth, what you need to look at in terms of the how-tos, what are some of the things critical things that you need to look at. All right, we're going to go for a short break, but when we come back, we're going to speak to Esta Kamau, who is the country director, HIFA Kenya. Don't forget that today we are talking about investing in youth-led enterprises. Don't go too far, we'll be back with more. All right, welcome back. We are here with Esta Kamau, who is the country director, HIFA International. We are talking about investing in youth-led enterprises. And before we went for break, we were talking about some of the initiatives that they've come up with, like Ayute Challenge, that is just supporting the youth-led enterprises, and also in the agriculture value chain. Thank you so much for sticking with us. All right. Based on your experience in assisting youth entrepreneurs, especially in this agriculture space, what are some of the challenges that they are going through that you've been able to just tackle, even as you work with the youth?
Okay, great. I think in terms of youth and challenging, especially youth agripreneurs, as we call them, one of the biggest challenges, of course, is access to finance, or access to capital, as I call it, because access to finance is not just about the money. It's also about the affordability of that money and the timeliness of that money. So that's a big one when it comes to any youth who's thinking about being involved with an idea in agriculture, whether as a primary producer, as a farmer, or even along the different nodes of the value chain. One of the biggest challenges that they must overcome is that one of access to finance. Not having readily available products that sometimes meet the production cycle of the work that they are doing. Sometimes also products that are created to be able to suit the different enterprises or the different businesses or the different innovations that they are working on. So that is one. I think another big one is access to information. And by that I don't mean, because there's a lot of information, but it's availability of that information and the who. You can go online and be able to get a lot of that information. You can Google, as I said earlier. But I think the biggest thing is there are a lot of things that are coming up. When you think about Kenya, when you think about production, even primary production, our research institutes spend a lot of money in coming up with different varieties and breeds. How are these youth being able to access that information? Where are they able to tap into that information to understand what are those breeds? What is the right thing that I need to be using? So information is a big one, but also access to markets. Remember, I talked about the challenge of the social capital, the challenge of credibility, the challenge of networks. The youth, because by virtue of the fact of being a youth, you may not have as many networks to be able to create those connections, because we know money makes money, number one, and your net worth is equals to your networks, right? There's a saying that goes like that.
Yes.
And therefore, the access to those networks that then will be able to link them to the right markets, the right opportunity, is huge. And then that brings me to mentorship. The ability to have people who be able to hold the hands of these young people. When the going gets rough, to be able to share with them that that is normal. When things change, the dynamics change, somebody who can be able to guide them, somebody who's been there, is very critical. So when I look at the youth, those are the critical things that I feel are the challenges. But the importance here is the opportunities those challenges present. And that is what, for us as Heifer, working with many other stakeholders, are really focusing on. Not just as Heifer, working with other, it might be financial institutions, working with government, working with other development agencies that are all focused on being able to support this youth, being able to see what are the mechanisms that we can then create to be able to alleviate some of these challenges, because they are all interconnected. They are not always tangible. I think that is really what I have to say. That when we think of problems, we think tangible, because you'll hear land, you'll hear capital. But there's also the intangible, that access to information, markets, mentors, that is very integral, and they go hand in hand. Yeah.
Right. Still on this matter, well, let us look at measures by also the public and private sector when it comes to mitigating the challenges. What are some of the measures? Because I believe you've spoken about the youth challenge, yes. But now when you look at the public and also the private sector, what measures does such a situation present?
Wow, I mean, there's been amazing effort. This is where I must laud both the government and also the private sector in terms of a concerted effort to create solutions that are then able to address some of these challenges for the youth. I think I'll start with the government. The government has come up with amazing, creative ways in which they can be able to provide access to capital, access to affordable, and in this case I'm talking about affordability and accessibility of that capital to the youth. We have, we have the Hustler Fund, where you have opportunities where the youth can be able to tap into that. But I think channeling the ideas, the government is in charge of creating the framework. But I think to be able to then bring that framework to life, we need the private sector. And what the private sector does is champions different activities, different ideas, because they have the muscle. Sometimes they have the systems. When you look at technological companies, they have the people who've been working with them, even as developers. So them being able to give up or give the opportunities of those developers to actually mentor and work with this youth is huge. Because again, I say it, when we talk about capital, it's not always money. It's also sometimes what these private sector companies are doing by availing their resources to be able to support the youth in terms of ideation, right? We also have a lot of private sector companies that are investing in resources. I do know several companies that are investing in technology. I know one company that is actually investing in what we call creating access to information on a timely basis. So they have these trucks that they've launched that go around the different counties that are actually able to, you know, kind of televise and share a lot of the current information. That's a huge private sector company. And that's not their core business. But what they're doing is they're using their core business, which is technology, to be able then to address this issue of access to information and communication to the communities in the rural area. So there's a lot that the private sector is actually doing. We also have different foundations that are also coming in, the foundations of the private sector that are actually coming in with grants, innovative financing mechanisms that are then creating those opportunities. Financial institutions. I mean, I historically come from that world. Before I came into the development world, I worked in the financial institution sector. But they are coming up with listening and creating very good packages, very good products that are then suited to be able to support youth and women and also farmers. So I think looking at the willingness, it is there. Looking at the way that now we are working together, not in terms of working individually, is also a big plus. Because I think one of the things that we've learned as Heifer, we are good at what we do. Now, going to reinvent the wheel in an area of something we're not good at is not our strength. But being able to identify who is good, so a telecommunications company, and then partnering with that communications company, the government, which has the biggest infrastructure, partnering with the government. Now, that creates really good projects, really good activities that then the youth, holistically in a 360 way, are able to tap to those solutions.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, let's also look at the rural areas.
Yes.
Farmers within the rural areas,
Yes.
if they want to just get hold of Heifer and say, okay, we want you to come and help us do maybe different activities within the agriculture sector, how are they able to get to you? Because I believe there are very remote areas where farmers would want to really get some help and especially get different ways of connecting to the market also. So how do you go about this?
Okay. So one of the things that we've done very well as Heifer, and I mentioned earlier, is simply not to reinvent the wheel. So what we do is we leverage on partnerships. So for us as Heifer, we work very closely with government, both national and local government. Now, if you talk about farmers in the rural areas, because farming is our business, that means by default, we really work in the rural areas, right? We work very closely with county governments. County governments already have a very good understanding of the different, areas within that county, the different opportunities. They already have county, strategic plans that they are focused on achieving within a certain window. And for us, we embed ourselves first and foremost with the county government, being able to understand what are those activities. Now, the county government then by default becomes then the mode at which we reach the farmers, because indeed they are there to serve those farmers. Therefore, if farmers are looking for us, if you go to the community today, we don't even need to be talking on radio. If you go, you'll be able to see the work. And if you trace back the roots of that work, it will trace back to the partners that we're working with at the grassroots, because we are very strong. When we also talk about the way we implement our work, Heifer, we don't actually implement ourselves. We don't go out and hire people to go and implement our work. What we are doing actually, we are going into those communities and identifying it could be innovators of private sector companies that are already having activities with in those communities. And then what we do is we work to fund those communities, because they're already, those enterprises, because they're already known in the communities. For example, I'll name one organization we're working with very closely that offers extension services at the grassroots. So the way we would have done our work historically would have been to hire grassroots people, to hire extension officers to go and do the work. But now what we are doing is, if there is already extension officers on the ground that are already provided by the government, that are already provided by these private sector entities, that are already working with the farmers, then what we do is we embed ourselves in those institutions. And then we then work with them, because they already have the trust. The farmers already know them. And for us, it's not about the farmers knowing heifer, but the farmers knowing about the technology, the opportunity, and linking them to the markets. So if farmers want to know about the work that we are doing, simply reach out to using your county, the agriculture sector, the youth department within the county is really aware of the work that we are doing. But also something else we are doing, which is important. You talked about very hard to reach maybe areas in the communities. And this has been one of the things that we've been looking about or talking about in heifer, because you remember when I said our work is about working to end hunger and poverty, but while caring for the earth. What does caring for the earth mean? It means issues to do with climate resilience. Now, we've recently started to expand our areas of operation to focus on the semi-arid and the arid. Because one of the things we found in the semi-arid and the arid areas of Kenya, they have huge tracts of land. Yes, they have a lot of issues when it comes to, resilience, sometimes because of climatic conditions. But we are using that as an opportunity. How do we then look at their activities, and how do we capitalize on that solar that they have to generate or turn it into something that is productive? And so we are actually actively now going out to some of those counties, working with the rural communities, especially in the arid and the semi-arid, the youth in those areas, on value chains that are really important to them, in the same way we've worked in some of these other communities that we've been known to work for many years. So private sector, where we work, knows us, but most importantly, if you reach out to the government, they know us, because we can't have offices everywhere. But what we do is we are embedded with government, which has offices everywhere.
Right. Thank you so much for that elaboration. Now, let's move to a different issue. We had talked about the initiatives that that are coming in order for young people to be encouraged to just get themselves into the agriculture side of a business. Now, let's look at also importance of rewarding innovation and like the Ayute Challenge that just ended. For a winner in that kind of challenge, what is the reward? And also, after the reward, how are they made accountable for what they gain? Because I mean, we are human beings, and at the end of the day, you might win a lot of money, and then maybe you go and do your own things. So, what goes into rewarding the innovation?
Okay, very good. Now, I think reward is very important, and it's a principle in life, right? At work, you have a reward system. At home, you have a reward system. It's a principle. So it's important to be able not to just talk the talk, but to walk the walk, by being able to not just identify these innovations, but also reward them. And so what we've been doing is an example of how, or a framework that can be used to then be able to, I think, grow this to scale. And so what we do is, once we identify that innovative solution, we actually offer grants, different grants. And I talked about in the last 2 years, we've been able to award a total of up to $40,000 US. I think that's on average about 6 million Kenya shillings at various levels to the innovators. But what we normally tell the innovators is that this winning, we're not just giving it to you as cash. They are normally required to come up with a plan in terms of milestones. When they get this and they win this grant, how are they going to implement the utilization of that grant in their activities? That is one. But number two, we tie this to our programming, which is very important, because you can give someone money with an idea, but you're not tying them to the people in need of that. Now, because we are working with these farmers in the rural communities and they already have the challenges. And these challenges that the youth are having are solving these challenges that the farmers are having. So we work with them to come up with milestones. We work with them in a way that they use that grant. And we also provide them the opportunity to work with the farmers, the farming communities that we're already working with, to not only test their hypothesis, but we are also now able to help them to scale. But I also want to underpin something that is very important in that process. That it's about not just the grants that they win, but those grants for us are actually seed capital that then can be duplicated to something more. Because it is creating the opportunity for them now to go out and present their cases to others, to become investable businesses by others. Where before, nobody was willing to invest in those businesses because it was too risky. So what we are doing by providing those grants, we're actually de-risking that idea of that youth and actually creating that opportunity. Allow me to use an actual example of Ayute and an actual example of the impact of what we've done. A good example is an organization called Hello Tractor, which was a winner of Ayute in 2021, the regional winner. And Heifer partnered with Hello Tractor, an innovator who had an idea to come up with a pay-as-you-go model that would be able to provide access of being able to rent tractors to farmers when they need them. Because one of the biggest challenges we found in the farming value chain and the cropping cycle is lack of availability of enough tractors when they are needed. So the demand is very high, the tractors are very few at a very specific period. After that, you don't have that demand. And therefore, we worked with that company to co-create a pay-as-you-go product where we would actually be able to have more tractors available on a rental basis. These tractors would be accessible using a digital platform. But importantly, they would actually be then able to bring together the asset owner, who is the tractor, together with what we call the booking agents, the people who are able to tell who needs the tractor, and importantly, the farmer who needs the tractor, and being able to aggregate that demand and provide that solution to the farmer when they need it. As a result of that, Heifer was actually able to invest over the 2 years $4.5 million in being able to buy tractors that then would be able to be used, and these people who aggregate the demand of the tractors could actually become tractor owners. Some of these youth, some of these women, and they're very good cases in point. But what did that investment do? That investment was able to ensure that we were able to increase productivity. This was piloted in 3 countries. It was able to ensure that we were able to help over 30,000 farmers, right? In terms of being able to till their land on a timely basis, but also to create employment opportunities for the people who are acting as the aggregators, and also for what we call the people who offer the mechanical services for those tractors. So we are now working actually on a hub model. If you go to, I think, Kisumu, Ahero area, we have actually started a hub model where that you can aggregate so that farmers know where to go and aggregate that demand. So it's like the Uberization of tractor services. Now that's just an example of how our investment was then able now to crowdsource. Currently, what has happened is that there's been an interest now from financial institutions of additional funding to Hello Tractor directly, and also a tractor company that has also injected capital or opportunities to that company. That would never have happened if we are not able to actually capitalize on this capital. So that helps you to understand the importance of the investment, not just the grant. That grant actually helps to open opportunities for these youth for additional other grants and additional ways. Now, secondly, and very importantly, is the mentorship.
Yes.
What the mentorship does, it opens and unlocks possibilities for this youth that they never knew existed. One, the confidence in which they are able to talk about their businesses. the opportunities and the people they're able to interact with, who then can be able to give them the right information, but also importantly, just that ability to be able to know that you have people you can count on, people who then can actually be able to speak on your behalf is very important. Now, for me, what is amazing is we are creating a community of youth-led enterprises.
Yes.
That then can go and speak to other youth about the impact of the work that they're doing. So you no longer need an Esta Kamau or a heifer. We have people like Hello Tractor, DigiCow, and other, innovators who now are actually going to speak to other youth about the impact of the work that they are doing, and therefore being able to show the youth the opportunity that exists. So that in itself, they wouldn't have been doing that before,
yes,
because maybe they were just trying to hustle for themselves. But now what we've seen is this hustling for themselves has created jobs for others, has created opportunity to crowdsource other investors in that space, but also to change the perception of the work that youth should be doing in agriculture. Yeah.
Right. Even as we come to a close of this conversation, are we looking at another challenge coming so that at least some of us can also apply there?
Yeah.
And also the future of youth-led enterprises in the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
Give us your perspective on that, and also just tell us if we have another Ayute challenge that is coming.
So I will start with the future of ag tech innovation in agriculture. I think it's the future. I think to be able to tap into the millions of youth and our budding young population, we need to tap onto that productive, creative energy that they have to solve some of our solutions. And so it is our responsibility collectively. That means organizations like Heifer, the government, private sector, to come together and create opportunities and create networks and create platforms that then help these youth to get them to the next level. So that is one. In terms of Ayute 3.0 is loading. I want to tell anybody out there who's watching this, please be on the lookout for that call for proposal. I think a lot of times when the youth see this thing, they think that thing is not meant for me. It's for somebody else.
Yes.
What I want to say today, if you are sitting out there and listening to this, is it is for you. It begins with you making the step of applying. Now, if you apply, you can apply and never make it to win. But the fact that you've actually taken that step to apply, it means you will meet other people, you will get information out of that. We have examples of people who applied the first time, failed, applied the second time, moved. We even have a case of someone who applied who was a failure, I think, in the first one, who never made it far. But this time, they were actually one of the top winners. So I want to encourage, when the call goes out, please check out on our social media, reach out on the government, as I said, in your different counties, because we are not looking at this as just specific areas. We are looking at all the counties because farming is embedded in most of our counties. So when the call comes out, please apply. Because out of this, you will actually also be able to get information, right? And then I think for me, when I look holistically, at the end of the day, I always say this thing: if it has to be, it's up to me. And so that's really my parting shot. For you seated out there as a youth, if it has to be, it's not about the government, it's not about your mother, it's not about your situation, it's not about your education. If it has to be, it's up to you. And so you need to take that initial step to make it happen. You have to believe, you have to begin to be able to become. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those insightful words. All right, there you have it. If it has to be, it's up to you. We've come to the end of this conversation. We were talking about investing in youth-led enterprises, and we were speaking to Esta Kamau, who is the country director, Heifer Kenya, and she's been really, really kind to just explain to us about some of the investments that and some of the strategies that they are doing in order for them to help the younger enterprises, the youth-led enterprises within the agriculture sector. And if you're out there, watch out for Ayute 3.0. Just apply. Doesn't matter. Just apply. That is all that it takes, the step to apply. All right, we've come to the end. My name is Calvin Nyakundi. Let's meet next time, same place right here on KTN Farmers TV.